Man, do you hear that? Look at here. They're coming. They're coming. We're going to have a party.
I'm talking good on barbecue.
Immediate gratification. I mean,
dude.
everybody wants it today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That is so.
You lose your thankfulness and what it takes to do something. And I was talking to someone who was trying to get their AC fixed or something. And I don't even think it was their AC. I think it was like their fridge. And they're like, we can't find no one to fix our fridge. And I'm like, damn, that sucks. Like, you can't put your food in there. Like, such a simple thing. But there's service jobs are going down. People are just, there's not many people doing those types of things. Like, what happens when that freaking happens?
Yeah.
I always worry about that. I'm like, those are like such necessary people. And those are the people to be thanking, the people that turn your AC back on in a freaking hot day. Like, the simple things in freaking life. Like, be grateful for the people that help us with those types of things. We're always looking at like, I want to be like, especially in this day and age. Like, I remember being a kid and being like, oh, I want to be a professional basketball player. Those types of things. You have those dreams. And they're far, far dreams away from you.
4'11", 92 pounds.
Right. Oh yeah, dude, I'm a slack. You know, but you look at athletes and you're like, oh, I want what they have. And dude, it's funny. I'm on the opposite end going, damn, I can't wait to have that normal job where people don't know me.
Yeah.
They know me for my character, you know,
And your work.
and that's something really special to me. And, you know, being up in the mountains, it's not just because I'm up in the mountains, it's because up in the small communities, people, you help each other out, you barter. Like, that's such a cool, it's awesome. Like, that's when you know that you will help someone, they're going to help you back. That is a cool lifestyle. And that's what I geek out about. So that's what I do around here is hustle. Now do a lot of stuff like that. I love people like that. I love be around that type of shit.
You definitely do. And I want to finish up with kind of some of the onyx stuff, because I'm looking across over here, all the bags you've made too.
Yep.
So, you know, right now, kind of what's next? Is there other product lines
So,
you're
right.
looking at? Is there?
I've got a full portfolio of upcoming patents.
Love it.
Yeah. That we've got some.
How you mind me asking how much IP you hold?
So I've got 2 current patents right now, 5 in line, and I've got probably 50 pieces. And that fits in everything from the tools to all sorts of things. I mean, every piece that I make, I'm trying to elevate how the system is done. And that's from bags to the way headgears are worn, to the training equipment, to weight cutting utensils, to the software. How can I coach every athlete in the world? I would love to be able to coach with my system, but also be able to have direct feedback to help them, you know, change the little habits and stuff that I see. And we're trying that with cameras right now. And that's like shooting to the moon. And that's with some really smart freaking people that I have on my team. So that's what we're trying to figure out, because there's many different ways. You can do it from data points and sensors, or you can do it from cameras and angles. I was working with a company where they're doing like golf swings and analyzing a golf swing, and it actually tells you exactly how to change your swing from here. Like, there are so many different strikes, so much different footwork that you can do. And if you can dial that in into apps, super cool. All of our equipment is, we're trying to set up an app where you can actually size everything without, you know, it scares me to buy shoes online.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you're like, oh, dude, I'm a 10.
Are they wide or they?
And then you get them and you're like, oh, this ain't a 10. This is this was made in China. It's a different 10, you know? I want to take that experience that you'd have at the mall when you're buying equipment to know that's going to fit, that you feel like it's going to fit your size. So there's some apparel companies that's been able to do that. So we're trying to do that with our equipment to make sure that you're getting what you're paying for. So those are fun processes from the business standpoint, but I got a lot of smart people that help me with those types of things.
Yes.
But yeah, we have a lot of high level technology that's going out. And at a certain point, if I could be behind the doors, just being the geek, making the patents and you know, testing things, and my testing facility would be like Jackass. Like, we have so many different freaking ideas on how we would test equipment in the funniest, shittiest way, you know, to see if it freaking really works. We have some great ideas. So
some real pressure testing.
Yeah, we have a lot of content videos that will come out. This is all a studio right here, which is really cool. So being able to share the process of that, you know, is cool.
And speaking of this being a studio and sharing things, like, you know, one of the things that's out there on YouTube right now and just gets a ton of views is your developmental striking videos.
Yep.
And I think that right there just shows like how in demand you are and getting inside that brain of yours and why do we strike this way and how like I found myself you cost me about an hour of sleep last night over it.
Nice.
Not down the rabbit hole. I don't know what I mean.
That's cool.
And I don't plan on
Yeah.
calling you up and saying I'm starting my career at
Yeah.
48. But it was just I'm a fan, so just understanding here's why and here's how, and you need to be thinking about this and that. And it was in terms where once again, I'm not training, but I respect the sport. And I
Yep.
respect combat martial arts and just being able to get into that mind and understand.
Yeah.
That's really I hope you plan on continuing kind of
Oh,
that
absolutely.
series.
That's me and Justin's videos were number one for such a long period of time. They're always asking us to do more videos, and we had our studio set up at our last place when our lease ran up. It was by surprise. They were great landlords, and they were always up front that they might need the space. So it took us a year. We were in storage. All of our stuff was in storage for almost a year, and this took a lot longer just because of inspections and things like that because it was a new building. But we finally got the studio up, got the rolling camera above, like a lot of high level stuff when it comes to doing videos and critiques on fights. Like that's something I want to get into too. Is understanding the relationship with coach and athlete, like watching fights. I did that for ESPN for a good period of time, but then COVID came and they wanted me to come out for earlier in the week, and I trained athletes. I just couldn't do it, so I stepped away from that. But I liked being able to critique situations if I could tell my own story on where I learned from this. When I was doing on ESPN, I did good at it, but I never like to critique someone or you go, hey, they should do this better or this, unless I can tell a story. Because there's many pieces. There's one where a guy forgot a mouthpiece, and I was like, dude, I've done that twice. I had one guy, Verto Phillips, we were fighting Corey Spinks in boxing and a Don King card, main event in HBO, and he's out there moving and I see him in the corner. He's in the opposite corner, but on my side. And I look down and there's just slobbery mouthpiece sitting on my thigh, and there's like 45 seconds left of the round. And I'm like, oh shit. And I'm like, if I stand up, I don't want them to stop the fight, because if you stand up, a lot of times the ref will be like, oh, stop the fight. And then I hear him go, and he's from Brooklyn. He's like, damn T. And I'm like, shit. And he looks at me while he's blocking. He looks at me, and then he walks back to the corner. And I was like, dude, I'll never let it happen again. And he's like, damn, man, I'm gonna lose my fronts. He sits down, and I was like, dude, don't worry, it won't happen again.
Coming out of your cut if I got to.
This is fucking awesome. So then it's like, hey, we all fuck up. There's so many times I fucked up as a coach. Then I forgot a mouthpiece in Memphis, and for the same guy, I would pack his shit for him. He'd stay at my house for camps, like high level guy, 4-time world champion.
That was awesome.
Yeah, Verno Phillips, yeah. And so I pack his mouthpiece, I pack his cup, I pack all of his stuff, his gloves that we're gonna hit mitts with. And we're out there, and he asked me, and I remember having all laid out in my closet for, while I was going to pack it. And I remember it sitting there, and he's like, you didn't forget my mouthpiece, right? And I was like, in this fight day. And I'm like, no, not at all. And I was like, all right, I'll see you in a little bit. We got 4 hours till we go. And I run back there, and I'm like, dude, I don't know if I grabbed it from the closet floor. And I went back, looked through started throwing everything around, and I'm like, fuck, I don't have his mouthpiece. And it's fight day. Yeah. And I remember going down, and we had to go to Mississippi. I asked a cab. I was like, dude, I need to go to a sports place, like a Walmart. Get me to a freaking Walmart. I get one of those little kids. And he liked like the cheaper mouthpiece. And he's like, there's no Walmart here in Memphis. There's one in Mississippi, but I can't leave because I'm a cab driver. I was like, dude, I'll give you $200 right now. He's like, oh, okay, cool. Dude, we go out there. Dude, all they had was the one that connects to a football helmet, so it's got the little piece. So we had to cut that off. He had to go use his little tea kettle to warm it up. And I remember his mouthpiece falling out that night, and he's so fucking tough, like so cool. It like knocked out of his mouth. He caught it while he's in the combination, put it back in, keeps punching. But funny story. There's 2 mouthpiece stories from the same guy. But if I can critique things, I always want to bring my own stories and my own fun to it.
Absolutely.
Because I'm never critiquing a someone to be like, oh, I'm a higher level coach. I'm critiquing you from the times that I'm going to tell you a story where this happened, because if you can make a traumatic situation, because it's traumatic when you're trying to take care of an athlete and you fail for them, it's traumatic. Because it's again, you feel like you let them down, and they're the ones taking punches. So if I am able to critique things in a fun way and talk good stories, if I see something, I'm like, oh, I remember a time when I did something like this. Let me tell that story, just so I'm letting you know that I'm not saying this to say I'm better than you. This is where we grow as athletes, and this is how I've grown from that, because those types of situations help you. I think it would be very, very, very good for a lot of coaches out there, and a lot of coaches do look up to me, and I do mentor a lot of coaches. So I think that would be a fun way to open up and really open up the dimensions to this sport from a coaching standpoint.
No, I love that idea, and plus just a general public like
Yep.
myself, that person that enjoys a UFC pay-per-view
Yep.
will enjoy the heck out of that. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
absolutely.
Of watching and hearing that, and, "Oh, man, I didn't know that story," or to me, one of the funnest things about what I get to do is storytelling.
Yeah, it's
I
the
I
best.
love
It's,
telling
it's the
stories.
best.
It's so much fun, you know what I mean? Um, one of the things so when I was first kinda putting my notes together for this discussion, I was sitting there and I was thinking, one of the hardest things you have to do as a coach is stop a fight.
Mhm.
But, like, you're a fighter first guy. These
Yep.
guys live with you. So I'm going back to and I don't know if the Nate fight's the only time you've ever had to stop a fight, but, like, is it hard? Do you question yourself, or is it this gut thing? He should not be taking this. Or he like,
It's
what is that thought process? I'm just
so
curious.
MMA was a little weird for a while because there was no way to stop a fight, and I thought that was very unique. So luckily, I was in the ring that day because I was able to get the ref to stop that fight. And they didn't really have a rule like you can't throw the towel in. Like, what do you do? So there was a big conversation like, what do we do to stop a fight? In boxing, it's pretty common to stop fights if you're being outclassed. I have a few situations. I have Vernal Phillips, so same guy. It was our last fight together against Paul Williams. I stopped the fight in the 7th round. He was taking damage, and I asked him how he's doing, and he was like, he's having a rough time. And I said, all right, I'm going to stop the fight. I got no wad back from him, like, don't stop it. And I stopped the fight and I didn't get paid. So there's a hard situation to that, but that doesn't matter. I helped save someone that day. He definitely wasn't on. And again, it was his last fight. And it was just one of those things we haven't spoke since that situation. But I think it was the right decision to make.
Yeah.
There was a big split in my gym when I had stopped Nate Marquardt. There was prior. I wasn't with Nate for 2.5 years. We were doing with the new management team, and there was some TRT things that happened at one of the fights with 3 of my guys. The management crew was like, we're gonna have to test everybody in the place, and so these guys come in, they do all this thing, and I tell the athletes what's kind of going on. I do and Nate ended up getting fired from the UFC because his levels were too high after being on something. I thought it was the worst thing in the fucking world because Nate was just had another child on the thing, and Nate listens to his doctors, he listens to everything. And just dealing with that whole situation where he lost his job, has a new baby on the way they treated him when I was like, just pull out, you're injured until you figure this out. Cause this is when TRT was allowed and you can't have a gray area. It's either white or black. That's just how I believe. And so we had a big gym split. Nate, the whole team left. We ended up having a huge split. All the management team managed all my guys, took all my guys. I started off with Rose, Justin Salas, who was in here today. And that was it. Those are my only 3 guys. I just got a brand new gym. That was huge. It was a tough moment for me because I realized that I was a water boy. And there was a lot of guys that were just with me because my name Trevor Wittman, because I was popular back then. And I was like, we're just going to start over again. And we redid it. We built everybody out, everybody back to world champions. So that was cool. But Nate came back to me, heard the situation, talked to someone from the inside of that whole conversation, realized that happened, came back, apologized to me, asked me if I'd coach him again. I said, absolutely. And the hard part was it was our first fight back. And we were in Mexico City. I don't know. So Mexico City is high as hell at altitude. I used to watch boxing all the time with Julio Cesar Chavez, who would only fight in Mexico City. I'd never got it when they were, talk about him fighting a hometown is such an advantage. I'm like, just a hometown advantage? And the only thing he left from Mexico City and lost his first fight in Las Vegas. And I didn't think nothing to it until we landed in the video crews like, hey, what'd you guys do to train for altitude? I'm like, man, we're at mile high, baby. We got this shit. And then they're like, oh, it's high up here. And I'm like, what do you mean it's not higher than Denver? And it was like 8,700 feet, like Breckenridge, like crazy. And dude, there was something off about this fight with Nate. Like his blood pressure was through the roof. After we made weight, the doctors looking at him, they're like, we want to see you. So they wanted to see him 3 times. That was a huge flag for him.
Yeah.
And then in the fight, the one thing I think is very important to be able to have a coach stop a fight is a coach knows the fighter better than the referee, better than the doctor sitting around. Because I watch him every day, and when you can see a posture change or something's just not right with him, I know. I see the way he walks. I see the way he moves. I know when something is off. And there was something off. The way he was bending in his back, it just looked very unique to me. And I got up in the corner and I was like, "How are you doing?" I was like, "Is a body shot get you?" And he's like, "No, no, the body shot didn't get me." And he just looked like he was just trying to recover. Like you just almost got drowned, is what it looked like.
Hmm.
And I said, "Nate, I'm going to stop the fight." And he looked at me and he's like, he kind of got like a sad look on him. And I hugged him and I said, "I love you." And I asked the referee to stop it. And I remember thinking, I didn't get paid. I'm probably going to lose my relationship with Nate again, who I loved. And I was just like, oh, well.
Yeah.
And thinking that like his life matters more. And afterwards, I remember his whole family thanking me. So it's hard to do.
Yeah, yeah, but
It's very, very, very hard to do because they don't get their win money. Like in boxing, you get paid no matter what. You don't get your win money. It's pulling you back on the track that you're getting to. And a fighter always thinks they can win a fight, and they should. And for him not to use it as an excuse made me very happy. But it was hard. It was really, really hard to make that decision because I'm taking control of his life from his fight life.
Mhm.
And when you get back to the locker room, you always start to feel better, you know. So that it was very hard because of but I also did have one situation where I had one boxer who I thought almost died in the ring, Manny Perez,
Yeah.
who had a lung injury, and I think it was from cutting weight, but we were fighting for the WBC, and he punctured a lung in his neck after the fight. Felt like he had like rice or chips in his neck. It was so weird. And I wanted to stop the fight in the 7th round, and manager and good friend who would help assist in the corner, Chris Morris, great guy. He was like, "Don't stop it." They're like, man, you know what Manny is like. Manny was super tough. Like he'd always find a way. And I was like, "All right, let it go another round." And it ends up going into the 12th round, and he's got 30 seconds left, and they're just banging. And now Chris wants to stop the fight with 30 seconds left. So I knock his towel down, and I'm like, "Hell no, he's got 30 seconds. Let him get through the fight. We're not going to stop it with 30 seconds left." You know?
Or the 12. Yeah.
So, but I had that thought to stop it in the 7th, and was talked out of it. And we ended up spending the night in a hospital. He ended up pulling himself out of the hospital, signing things that they were like, "Dude, you can't leave. You need to sign this. If you go up in a flight, there's a good chance that you could die having your lung punctured." And then I set up with Chad Pressmack out here, who's a back surgeon and very high in a hospital. I was like, "Dude, we're coming straight in, going straight to the hospital." And I remembered how hard that was for me being on the flight with him and trying to make him laugh the whole time,
Right.
or joking with him, just kind of seeing how he's doing. And I couldn't say no because he wanted to see his newborn son, who was like 4 months old. And that's all I want to see. He's like, "If I die, I just want to see my son." So it was crazy. So those type of situations are what has assisted me to be able to make those decisions and not care what anybody thinks. But it's hard.
But because you're really out there, you're not protecting the fighter, you're protecting the man, the father, the
Absolutely.
you know what I mean? Like the
Absolutely.
that's just their living. Right.
I'm protecting you to enjoy. I'm making equipment so fighters last longer. They don't get injured.
Yes.
I am trying to save athletes for the longevity of their lives to be able to see grandkids on top of their children like that. Like just not children, their grandkids, and to be able to grow old. Like this is a tough business. If you do it for too long and you don't give a fuck and it's just about that dollar, you're selling prize fighters like you're fighting chickens or dogs. And
Yeah.
that is one of my biggest pet peeves.
And I completely understand it. All right, proud sponsor of the show, better damn well be Whiskey Bent BBQ. So this is a brand that Nicole and I started a little over a decade ago. You can find our rubs and seasonings in about 500 different retail locations throughout the U.S., Academy Sports, select Ace Hardwares, and then obviously here at our store in Lakeland, Florida. If you want to go check it out, please feel free to. WhiskeyBentBBQ.com, and you can use my discount code OldBoyPodcast for 15% off. So I want to talk about, Justin and Usman.
Mhm.
So Justin, you see at a Ring of Fire 2011.
Mhm.
What was it about it? Like, I want to work with this guy, or I want to, what kind of how did you guys meet up? And because it was so cool to watch the mutual respect. I mean, he's getting ready for the biggest fight. You guys are 2.5, 3 weeks out. I mean, you're full go of it. To watch the way you guys, the way you train him, but just the respect. Like
Yep.
when that round stopped, he was right here.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And it was just awesome to watch. So how does that start? Because you're kind of at that point where you can kind of pick and choose who you want to.
So at the point that I met him, I had a big team.
Mhm.
I was at the fights. I had a couple guys on the card, and I heard about the Gaethje, and I For some reason, I was thinking it was a Japanese name because I was going to Tokyo a lot for K1, and there's a lady at the K1 who would always be like, "Round one, fight!" And the way she would say names, I don't know why. Geichi. I thought would be like a Japanese name, and it's just funny how I thought that, you know. So I pictured Leister, one of our wrestling coaches, said that, "Oh, you got to see this guy; he's crazy." And I heard other people talking about him, and the name stood out, Geichi. And all of a sudden, he was on the card, and I remember looking up and saying, "Oh, this must be the guy." And I ended up watching him, and he was just a highlight reel watching him. And afterwards, after his fight, he picked a guy up, slammed him, and ended up finishing him. But it was just spectacular. And I talked to the promoter that night, Sven Bean, who said he named him the highlight because of his slams. It wasn't because of anything else. Like the way he picked people up and put them on their head, it was like very unique. And he was in the locker room. I just came up and introduced myself and said, "Hey, man, I'm a fan of you. That was an awesome fight. And it's a pleasure to watch." And asked him, where are you training right now? And he's like, "Oh, I just wrestle." And I was like, "Oh, cool. You don't train MMA?" And he's like, "No." And I was like, "How many fights you got?" He's like, "5." So I was like, "Well, if you ever need to train or spar or work with some guys, feel free to stop down. Yeah, you're up in Greeley. We're all the way down in Denver, but you have an open invitation anytime you want to come by." So he showed up like 2 weeks later with Shane Carwin. Shane Carwin lived in Greeley, also was a engineer up there for the water up in Greeley.
So at this time, Shane's just an engineer for the water company?
No, he was a fighter too.
Fighter too,
He was a
okay.
full-time engineer
Get you.
and a fighter also, and he was fighting in the UFC at the time. And he brought him down, and we had the conversation of, he's like, "I'm here to fight," and I was like, "Cool, we'll set fights up." He's like, "No, I want to fight today," and I'm like, "Well, we don't fight, we spar," And he's like, "Yeah, that's what I mean." And I'm just like, "Dude, this is crazy. This guy's crazy." I thought he was like such a meathead. Like this voice that he had, I was just like, "Dude, you're just a freaking meathead."
Yeah.
I was trying to get him, like trying to understand him. And then again, you get your read the book by its cover. And he goes back and I'm like, "All right, you need some equipment, I'm guessing." And he's like, "Yeah, I don't have nothing." And then I take him back there and I'm like, "Get some shin guards from down there." And, so there's a whole bunch of leftover type of gear.
Yeah.
Get some gloves and then get one of those headgears. And he turns around, he looks back and he goes, "No, they were wearing helmets. Why do I gotta wear a helmet?" And I was just like, "Dude, funniest shit ever." And I'll never forget, dude, the first day he spars, he goes with Vinny Lopez, who is a really, really good fighter, really heavy hitter. And he's sparring with them, and Justin throws an uppercut, and Vinny throws an overhand, and they both land. And Justin turns backwards, and he's looking at the ground, and I thought he got rocked. He's like, "Oh my God." And I'm like, "You good?" And he's like, "I've never hit no one like that in my life." I was like, "Dude, this guy is fucking unique." And so I started giving him some time. He was just so grateful for everything, dude. Always saying thank. His manners were so unique. Like he was such just a pleasant guy to be around. So I started giving him a lot of time. And then about 3 months later, we had that huge gym split where all the coaches left to go to Muscle Farm. They had this big old thing that they're moving everybody to Muscle Farm. So they had this super facility. Everybody was getting salary and pretty much pulled everybody away except for our small little crew. And his loyalty to actually knew one of the coaches that was doing it, that coached him, which he was like, "I know exactly what this guy's about." And this was a guy who was trying to get 10% and wanted to learn how to hit mitts so he could be on TV, like one of those guys, one of those guys. And so him sticking with me and getting the full time and just his gratefulness and the way that he meeting his family and getting to know like how he was as a person. Like he was so scared of his parents. Like he smoked marijuana and he'd be like, "Dude, I can't let my parents know." And just the way he was, he had like this just unique relationship that I loved. And his family was so awesome. Ray was so awesome. His whole family was
Yes,
so
they
awesome.
are.
And he just, I fell in love with everything about him. His work ethic, his willingness to work, his willingness to try new things, and his passion, his funness. Like he's a highlight in anything he does. And we have just clicked. Like I look at him as one of the closest people in my life. From everything that he does, I think he's a great human being. The way he treats his fans, the way he treats everybody equally. Like he never holds something back. That never schmoozes people. Like he is just, he's a very unique person.
Yeah, it's interesting because he's just a dude.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
Oh,
like
yeah.
I was sitting there that night after I'd cooked and we're all down in the basement playing pool. There's fights on, and I'm like, I'm watching fucking
Yeah.
fights
Yeah.
with Justin and
Right.
T and Luke and the whole staff, Terrence,
Yeah.
and everybody's like, how cool is this? But everybody's literally just watching the fights as old boys watching the fights, playing pool. By the way, I never got none of them dollars. You won plenty that night. You did pretty good.
That was on a pool that night as well.
I mean, I love watching you two guys play pool against
Yeah.
each other.
Yeah, we're super competitive, and
it's great.
it's fun. Like he's just an awesome person. He's one of those guys that's so normal, no different than anything. And then one of the things that really stands out to me is a lot of times when people grow in this sport, they become Showtime. They change, they transition, and I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of high level people, and tons of champions to be able to work with, especially coming from a high level where I'm not working from the ground level up. It was awesome to be able to build the Roses and the Justins from the ground level up, and just again prove something to myself there where there's a lot of criticism, like you're lucky you get hand me downs from a lot of things, and it was one of those things. It's even better to start them from the beginning because again, every piece to them, and there's something very unique, and that's why we're that close. Yeah. Usually when a fighter's done fighting, you don't get much time with them. Like Justin Salas is here coaching now. I get to still see him after his career is over. But a lot of times it's like being a parent. Your kids get to a certain age and they move on. And Justin's one of those guys that we will always be doing the same thing. We have the same beliefs when it comes to work ethic and the blue collar work. Like what would we do afterwards? Like we like to freaking work. We like to do just good, shit, like men. So it's fun.
Break a sweat and build some shit.
Yeah, exactly.
Nothing wrong with that, old boy.
Yeah.
So in talking about that closeness and those type of things, when we got to talk about 300.
Yep.
You've been in this game a long time. You're well respected. One of the best fucking fights ever.
Absolutely.
Ever. And, it was interesting because, the confidence was high here. I'm sure the confidence was high at Max's.
Yep.
But it was just a fight of two guys that was just unreal. I mean, it was just a pleasure to watch. That last 10 seconds, you had to be like a proud father.
Absolutely.
The way he says, let's fucking go.
Yeah. And Max does that a lot. So we expected that. I expected that. He does that pretty much in every fight.
Fucking hesitate.
And that's Justin. Like the one thing knowing going into that fight is this is going to be the best fight. It's going to be like Justin puts on great fights. Max always puts on the great fights. These two meeting each other is going to be just a fan pleaser, no doubt. Like I have the ultimate respect for Max being the type of person he is, how he helps his community. Same thing. Like Max, and I'm a friend with Max. Like that it's hard when you're facing your friends, but it wasn't going to be hard with Max because I know the type of fighter he is. Like he's the type of guy. Hey, green belt, let's fucking go. Afterwards, let's have a fucking drink. Like he's just a cool dude like that. And going into the fight, we had a lot of people who were like, "Dude, this is like an easy fight for Justin." I'm like, "Dude, how is this an easy fight?" Max is like one of the fastest, best at putting combinations together. Has a chin of stone. Loves the fight. Loves the chaos. And so I really respected this fight going into it. Justin told me afterwards, he was like, "Man, I wish I would have respected him more. And I wish I would have knew that prior or dialed in just to make him fear a little bit more." Because I think he thought maybe smaller, something like that. You just never know. And he was just like, "Man, I wasn't scared at all." He's like, "I was in the locker room just at ease." And I'm always trying to gauge Justin because he doesn't ever show fear. Like he's one of the guys that just enjoys chaos. So I'm always trying to dial him in and understand that. But I didn't see anything wrong that night. I just wish he could have told me that to let me know because he was clearly like I didn't fear him at all. And just the respect they had afterwards. The funniest part and I think the coolest part was sitting in the ambulance with Justin and his mom. And he kept asking me, "Did I get knocked out?" And I'm like, "Yeah, you got knocked out." And he's like, "What round?" And I was like, "Last second of last round." He's like, "Good for him." That's what he said. And then he would say, he's like, "It was a good fight." And I was like, "Dude, the fight was awesome." And then
we're going to talk about this.
15 seconds would go on and then it would rebuttal again. Same thing. "Did I get knocked out?" Same shit. 20 fucking times. And my favorite part was good for him. Like that just shows who Justin is. Like he's like, good for him. Like he just instantly was like, good for this sucks for us. Yeah. But finds a positive piece to say because this sport is a crazy sport. And when people think that they're invincible and think that they're just king shit and this sport ruins people. It ruins people. I seen it ruin Mike Tyson and Mike Tyson came back to be a better person, to laugh at himself. But when you start to get used and abused and you're the greatest thing on earth and you can go into any restaurant and they're like, "Dude, we'll feed your whole family. You don't even worry about the bill." And then once you lose to another greatest guy in the world,
Mhm.
also people put their head down, they shake their head, they're like, you instantly are shunned.
Yep.
People don't realize how hard that is on someone that is in this type of arena.
Mhm.
And it really kills the guys because, especially a person like Justin who fights for the people and people
Yes.
that go out there and fight for the people,
Yeah.
it breaks their spirit. But Justin is just very unique. Justin is one of those guys that, out of all humans in the world, I think he's probably one of the most unbreakable. He's one of those guys that just it's never going to stop the way he fights. It's never going to stop him. It's never going to make him hesitate.
Mhm.
And I've seen some of the greatest fighters become more intelligent. The more experience that they get, the worse fighters they become. The more hesitation they start to have because you
Overanalyze.
overanalyze. I mean, if you have a cut, you always think there's going to be a cut. Now, the more fights you have, yeah, it's more experience, but sometimes it really is a detriment to a lot of people where they start to overthink everything. They can't pull the trigger because they know what has happened off of a right hand before. Where Justin, I don't think it'll ever. He's like a guy who can crash a race car and still go out there and push the pedal to the floor instantly and not be like anything.
If I crash it next time, it's gonna be 5 degrees.
Yeah,
5 miles an hour faster. Oh boy.
He's that type of guy, dude. We had a kid, so we bought Can-Ams together. First day we went out there, mine was having something put on. I think we were doing tires or something. So we go out with his to go hit this track. Now I grew up on quads, so we do big old gaps, and you learn the trail first. You just start to go, and you start to understand, how hard you got to shoot it to make the gap and not overshoot the gap. We get in his fucking car, dude. It was the funnest thing. So we were at Six Flags with the family 2 days before that. I remember telling my wife, Six Flags has nothing on Justin Gaethje. Like, we were in this car, and I still have the video I have to show you. We got our helmets on, and dude, he's got his music blasted, and we're going over these jumps, and he never grew up with like four-wheelers, like hardcore tracks. Like, he's growing up riding them, but hitting huge gaps and stuff. Whole different thing. And dude, he's overshooting these gaps, and there's one that he overshoots like by 20 feet. And we hit the front end hard, come down, and we're going, and I'm having a blast because these things are just built fucking, awesome. We have all the specialty stuff on there. And we go around for the next lap, and he's going, and we hit this other one. And these other ones are like small downhills. The other one had a big downhill. So if you clear the gap, you're clearing another 10 feet in air coming down. And dude, he's full throttle. And I'm thinking to myself, dude, we're going to overshoot this motherfucker big time. Dude, we go up in the air and we're launching. And I've got my hand on both handles and I'm enjoying every fucking piece to it. I'm just like, dude, if we die, we die together. I've always told them in a golf cart, if we roll this bitch, let's go. I love that. I love entertainment and facing that shit. We're in the air and we hit the ground. And dude, he flag pulls it. Like, we stick to the floor. And I thought we were going to tip over forward because we just stalled and hit like that. And we slowly go back and hit the ground. And right as we hit the ground, he hits the gas again to fucking go. Dude, full fucking gas. And the fucking thing turns sideways and starts rolling sideways. Oh, dude, it's just, I'm like, oh shit. He's like, it's fucked up, isn't it? And I was like, yeah, it's fucked up, dude. We get out, dude. And his fucking shit, dude. He bets his whole frame. It cost him $36,000. His machine was only like 40-some thousand. Dude, he had to get a whole brand new frame, like everything, dude. His whole gusset, his front end, his rear trailing arm was bent. Dude,
That's what you're telling me.
a lot of the engine was fucked too. Like, it was the whole thing. I couldn't believe it. I was driving home next to him, and dude, he's got a thing on the trailer. And it's also, they had to use a tractor to get it on the trailer. But it was the funnest thing ever. And he's like, dude, sorry, coach. And I'm like, don't ever take that back. I was like, that's what I love about you. It was the funnest thing ever. Dude, those seatbelts?
Yeah.
Those
Harnesses?
Oh, they're the best. Like, we hit so hard. We were probably 40 miles per hour to a dead stop and nothing. Like, my neck was fucked up a little bit just because of the weight of the helmet.
Yeah.
But dude, it stopped us dead. Like, I was like, oh my God. Like, it dug a hole into the ground. It was sweet. The way we stuck it too and just held it. I wish we had a 4-hour get it perfect, dude. But that's Justin. That's how he is. He's a wild man. He's so much fun to hang out with. He's a highlight in everything he does.
That is so much fun. And it's just, I was watching back some fights last night. I was watching the Ferguson fight.
Yep.
And I don't know why it was the first times I've watched a lot of Justin's fights. I've been fortunate to be pretty good friends with Dan Henderson. We've done a bunch of hunting and this, the other. And I was sitting there and I'm going, man, these guys are cut from a lot of the same. Dan was the same way, right? Like, you hit him, he's just going to keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Leg kick the shit out of you. That wrestler mentality of just, if I lose, it's all getting left
Yeah.
right here.
The head knows the man.
Yeah, yeah. But that was interesting to me. It was the first time I kind of drew that parallel of like, it's kind of very similar thought process. And the other thing it made me realize is you like wrestlers.
That was so I have a very unique striking style,
Mhm,
and I love wrestlers just because their mentality.
mhm.
Like wrestlers cut weight, they have strong necks, really good hips, so that means they're going to be able to hit hard. So it's a prodigy for. I mean, it's built for me to be able to put a recipe together to make those guys champions. In MMA, every one of my champions was a wrestler outside of Rose.
That's a great transition. So how do you and Rose hook up? How do you end up
Through Pat.
working together?
So Shane was coaching Ultimate Fighter. I had the opportunity to coach Ultimate Fighter with Rashad, Shane, and Justin. But on Shane's season, he brought Pat Barry out, who's dating Rose, and Pat had told me all about Rose.
Mhm.
And me and Pat didn't really click in the beginning. Then we started to really click. He's a funny guy. He's a lot, but he was really funny. And he came out to our team and joined our team. And then he ended up bringing Rose out, and I just wouldn't work with females. It was just hard for me to work with females in the gym because of the drama it would create. And I was like, in classes, fine, but with the fighters, it was just like, dude, fighters would start fighting each other and just fighting over the women. So we just had like a no chick squad,
Mhm.
and I
Mhm.
did that for a while. I started from like the boxing world, and she was very close with Pat. So I was like, all right, no problem. You guys are in a relationship. You guys are going to stay together. They were engaged.
Yeah.
Uh, so that wasn't going to be a situation. So I got to work with her, and yeah, she's super talented girl, very coachable,
Yeah.
very unique. Wore everything on her sleeve. Like she was awesome to work with because she was so honest about all her feelings, and I love the mental training. So when someone expresses how they're really feeling, it's fun for me because I can really help them out.
You can really dial in, right? Like the more they give you, the more you can give them.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was awesome. I love Rose so much. She is such a talented person.
Very, very talented.
Intelligent too,
Yeah.
super intelligent.
And the other one is I hear Usman had to kind of sell you.
Yeah. I mean, they all do. Like at this point,
Well, yeah,
like
that's what I find is cool.
yeah,
We had a conversation yesterday about,
yeah.
like it's gotta feel good to be at that point in your career, but at the same time too, when you get an opportunity like, "Ah, man,
Yeah.
when are you gonna get to do this one again?" But
Yeah,
kinda talk to me about the
so
discussion.
Tomorrow had come out to Colorado. He probably had like 4 fights in the UFC when he came out and he was in town. He was visiting Colorado Springs in the Olympic Training Center.
Mhm.
One of his wrestling coaches was down there, and he's like, "Hey, do you mind hitting mitts?" And we talked hit mitts, and I've always liked him, and we stayed in contact. And uh, I was just a super fan of what he did in the industry. And then he was in town again. Was like, "Hey, can I come in and hit some mitts with you?" And I'm like, "Absolutely, come on in." And he hit mitts, and then afterwards, he had asked me to work with him, and he was already currently the champion. And I'm done. I was like my body's beat up, and doing this for so many years, my body can only take so much. My wife, luckily, she gives me a massage anytime I ask for it. Like she's just caters to me, and she's seen me go through the ringer with these guys and
Mhm.
and how my body feels. So I'm just like, man, I've hit every goal. I've got other goals that are on my plate, but I know what I do as a coach, so I will always keep 1 or 2 athletes. And he had asked me, and I was like, dude, I'm just like, you're already a champion. I'm just like, here. And at first I'd have to ask my wife, but in my head, I'm like, no, I'm not going to train you. I just lost one athlete, and I'm just like, just free up some time for me.
Mhm.
And he was like, all right, well, go talk to your wife. And I also had to talk to Justin and talk to Rose. And I went and talked to my wife, and my wife was like, yeah, absolutely. I met him one time and he was awesome. So I was like, all right, let me think through this. And I still wasn't decided fully if I was going to do it. And then he came in and he had something written down. And the first thing he started off was I thought a lot about what we talked about yesterday. And one thing that stands out about you as a coach is when I was at the MMA awards, every one of your fighters that won an award had such a unique style to them on how they spoke about people, how they were building their brand outside of fighting without like putting on an act like a Conor McGregor or something like that, but just being a good human being and inspiring like an athlete. And he's like, I look at you not just being one of the greatest coaches in the world, but one of the greatest life coaches. And that hit me. So I was like, oh yeah. And I was like, oh, this is fun because it's what I like to do.
That's
You know, it's fun. Plus he lived in Florida. You
Mhm.
know, how much time am I going to really get with you? And when he said that, I was like, oh, I'll get time with him. You know, when I coach people, I want to get deep in conversations, knowing about their family, about everything. So I really know, you know, what we're tackling, fuel, and you know, why are they fighting, and all these different things. So I can really dial those things in, and that was cool. And I've learned what's so cool about a relationship like that is you come in, he's coming to learn from me, but I've learned so much from him.
That's and then that's the thing too, is being able to appreciate that. Yes, your role is to teach and coach, but at the same time being open-minded enough that you can learn something every day too.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And how they carry themselves or how they respond to this. And to me, that's being able to once again be present and be able to be part of that and take that in just makes you a better person for taking that opportunity. And it also makes it easier too of you were giving up some time commitment, but the fact that you can be a better person coming out of it
Absolutely.
makes it a lot easier to take that.
Yeah.
And that's a
that-
compliment. Like how can that not make you feel
That was
wanted, make
great.
you feel validated
Yeah.
at what you do?
Yeah, because I get overwhelmed with people being like, you know, it's typical. The thing I don't miss about having a gym is you have those athletes that are there and they're you know, everybody wants to be a champion and talks like they're the next great thing, but they're the type of guys that when they see you, they're like, "Hey, coach, can I get some mitts today?" And it's like, dude, I asked you to get on the bag and work on this, and you haven't tried it once. I looking at my cameras, just the needy guys that need shit. And they just think everything's fucking free, and just that irritates me. And so I'm always got my hands up for you know defense on those types of things. And obviously he's a champion and all those different things. But it was when he had said that, it was like, oh, that's you're asking me a different way. This is cool.
Well, and it seems like you obviously now just having a select handful, it's all very coachable people.
Absolutely, yeah.
And to me, that's amazing to be at that but and maybe that's why they're at the top of the sphere.
You have to be.
You know what I mean?
You have to be the
It's
willingness to learn. Your coachability index. The one thing that I repeat a lot when speaking to people is you don't know what you don't know. And when people get stuck, you know, let's think about it from like a political standpoint. I remember when political, you can vote a little bit left, a little bit right, and have different ways of voting. And now it's like everybody is so stuck that you're either so far to the right or so far to the left that's where I start to get where how is this even effective? And I look at that in simple places of life. That if you're still stuck in a way that you can't think through or know that there's even a different way, then there's no changing it. Then there's no. So that's to me very important when it comes to these type of
Mhm.
relationships. Like it's got to like when you can both grow together. Like that's so important to me, and being able to have that open mindedness to growing.
Yeah, absolutely. No, and to me, that's a building block of just getting better in
Yep.
anything that you do.
Yep.
And it's one thing that I love about this opportunity with the podcast is being able to sit down with people
Yeah.
and learn and glean things and talk about things. And sometimes for me, the research
Yeah.
is just as rewarding as the discussion because
Totally.
you just learn so much that you can then apply, in kind of your day-to-day life. And speaking of that, one of the things that I thought it was a very, very strong statement. And after hearing about you and Justin's UTV adventure,
Yeah, yeah.
kind of brought it back to the front of mind was I've never been suicidal,
Mhm.
but I'm not afraid to die.
Yep.
It's a it's an interesting. I mean, it's a very strong mindset.
Mhm.
But if you think about it, it means I'm going to live every day at peace with what happens.
Yep.
Not going to let fear win.
Yep.
Get it? And as I was doing this research and pulling all this together, like all the themes pull together.
Yep.
You know what I mean? It's really once again that's why I get back. I'm looking forward to this book. I'm gonna go ahead and be the first pre-order right now.
Yeah, yeah.
I know we still got to get the 100 million. It's a little bit away, but Trevor, I want to be the first
Yep.
pre-order for that book,
Awesome.
man. It's I've really enjoyed getting to learn about you and understand some of this. Talk to me about that a little bit. The never suicidal, but not afraid to die. I mean,
So that actually started when I was in high school.
Mhm.
Is again, I felt like I was ineffective. I felt like a broken child. I felt like, again, so I haven't, I homeschooled my daughter because of the situations I had through school. Again, I look at our system of having, in high school, you have 7 different teachers, 5 days a week. And next year you change to 7 different teachers, and just the influencers that I had in my life that motivated me to go the wrong direction. Again, you're a bad kid, you're amounting to nothing, you got nothing going on in your life. Uh, those types of things keep children down, where I think children just need someone to pat you on the back and say, hey, you can do it, whatever you want to do. Because I was always talented in everything I did. But it was like, how am I this talented, but I'm the one that's going to amount to nothing, and you need to sit here and you need to do this our way. And I was always that outside thinker, like I always thought a little differently. So I was I wouldn't say depressed, but I didn't care.
Mhm.
Like I did, I would get in fights a lot. I'd always break rules. I was kind of going down the bad road until finding boxing, which made me change that. And then I was able to release my tension and get that out. And really, once I started falling in love with fear, like again, I never thought about being suicidal, but I didn't care. Like I've had a gun put to my head, and I just walked the person down, actually pushed against it, and one of my friends ended up passing out and almost going into a seizure. And I remember dealing with him and going, "Are you okay? Like, what the hell is happening?" Like, I was so panicked for him, but I was like, I don't fucking care. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, I don't care about dying. I lived on the streets for about 3 years. I lived behind a grocery store called Nazzo's. I'd sleep next to the grease pack. This Italian restaurant. They had
Mhm.
this where they pour the grease out at night. Dude, it was so warm. It'd be snowing and the shit was so warm. It smelled like shit. But dude, it was the best. Dude, but that I just had that rough living growing up. Was kicked out a lot. It just again when someone would kick me out about trying to run back, I was just a rebel in a
Mhm.
sense. And then finding out that when you chase something fully and it's when you start to fear dying is where I feel like that's where we pull back from true desire.
Mhm.
Like if you're willing to die, like again, if someone's going to break into your house and attack your family and you're afraid to die, your family's going to get attacked. And that's what fighting is. Fighting is like, no, I'm going to stand up for what I want to believe in to the fullest. And if you don't fear dying, you're probably not going to die. So it's just, again, being
Probably not
committed.
gonna live much
Yeah.
either.
It's exactly. If you fear dying, you're not going to live at all. And that's what makes people who, jump a snowmobile, let it go and then swim back to it and grab it is their trust in what they can do and overcome something. And that's the key to life is being great.
Yeah.
And being great in those type of senses, that's living. That's when your heart beats at the fullest. That's where you go home and you're just like you start to live for those challenges. And man, I've always been a child like that. Justin is very similar. We connect very close to those types of things. But even being in a great state of mind and having a perfect life, I think living is everything.
It's funny you brought Justin up kind of with that same, mentality, because it was funny, we were talking with Luke yesterday, and
Yeah.
I was making him tell Justin and Jason about his ritual in the locker room before a fight,
Yeah,
or
that's
get
rough.
sick. He's like, "Man, I remember this one time," he's like, I had it all together, I had it all together." He's like, and Justin's getting in, like, Justin fight mode. Justin's like, "Boys, I think it's a good day to die." I'm like and Luke's like, all of a sudden, like, I'm gone. Like now my buddy's talking about he's gonna go send it like that.
Yeah.
So I got upset, but and then later on, later on in the evening, I'm reading this and I'm like, oh, I wonder where Justin got that from. Like,
Yeah,
like
Justin. I don't know if Justin got that from, but we're just
probably
similar, but
just
some, yeah.
similar
Right.
vibes.
We're definitely very unique. I told him, and it would have been awesome to go to school with him because it's hyper. Like he's hyper like me.
Yeah.
Like I didn't realize it until like he would stop smoking weed prior to a fight, and I'm like, dude, you are hyper. Like I feel like you're on something right now, like hyper. And that's how I'm a fucking hyper guy. But yeah, we're very very similar in those types of things. Like he's a wild man.
No, I loved it. Two more things I've heard you say that I'd like a little bit of background behind. And one of them I know definitely, and I love this one because I try to live a little bit this way too. There are gonna be highs and lows in life,
Yep.
but don't try to peak and don't try to valley.
Yep. I think that's a huge thing. I think I'll use a statement that I use all the time when watching fights with others is where you see a first round knockout. I always will stay, and if you watch fighting a lot, make sure you watch this guy's next fight. And they're always like, why? And I'm like, watch, probably one of his toughest fights of his life. And it's a unique pattern because of the relaxedness that you get when if you get an early first round knockout,
Mhm.
that's simple. Almost always, there's some type of relaxing that goes on in the psyche. You start to polish that hand. Damn, I did all that running. I trained extra hard for this fight. It's not the training that did it. It's just, dude, I'm just gifted. Again, there's something special. Like you have that highlight piece that you do, and that's peaking. That's where someone peaks, and then they all of a sudden get relaxed. Again, it's also you can't get when you get too low. Again, they'll be down. Things happen.
Mhm.
There's days where you don't feel 100%. You could be, a finely tuned athletic machine, but you're still going to have down days. And so many people assess feelings. Oh, I don't feel so right. And it's so funny just how magnetized that becomes like during fight week. I was just talking with Corey about this. He's like, man, it's like, man, I not performing these last couple of weeks on my peak week. I tell him the story about my boxers. The boxers always used to bring their family and their girls in on the last sparring session. It's their last day of peak week. And I have to explain to everybody, yeah, he's going to do good. I promise. He's got a fresh guy in every round. And yes, he's dead tired. He's been doing these things because they look like shit and they feel like shit. And it's because your system's turning over. You got to fight. The fight's getting closer. Now you're starting to count the days. And that is just again, when you start to live off feelings or like, I'm the best in the world, like, yeah, you need to state it and be proud of it. But you don't need to state it to people or walk be like, oh, walk of a champion is someone that you will never know is a champion.
Yeah.
And when I mean that definition is like, you're a champion prior to being a champion. A belt is material.
Mhm.
A true champion will be the same before he got the belt and after he got the belt. You look at guys, and again, I like to use Connor a lot because I don't like his arrogance. I don't like what he done. He's a guy whose everything has changed in his mentality. He's always been a little cocky guy. He can fight, no doubt. But what becoming a champion has done for him
Mhm.
has made him a shitload of money. It's given him a whole bunch of things that peak,
Yeah.
addictions and things
Yes.
like that. And those are the types of things. If you got someone that just still works hard, will still have a normal job, even though they've become a champion, and not do it just because I need money. No, because I want to help my neighbors. I want to go help them dig holes for the fence. I'm going to go do things that take hard work.
Mhm.
When you stop working hard because of your hard work got you somewhere, you're forgetting the whole process, the journey of what it is. And that's the walk of a champion is how you never change. When you get knocked down, you should get up with the same look as when you knock someone down. It should, like when people run around and they're like, oh my God, the excitement, it cracks me up. It makes me giggle. When you see people who are just known to win and they just know they're going to win and they turn around and they walk and it's like nothing else.
You hit that.
Those are
game-winning
stone
home run.
killers right there. Those
Yeah,
exactly.
You hit that game-winning home run, and the trot's the same as it
Yep.
was if it was a solo bomb in the third inning.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Proud sponsor of the show, Trollco Clothing. Love what the brand's about. It's all about supporting that blue-collar worker. You know them for their trademark shirt and hat, dirty hands, clean money. It's not just a slogan. It is a lifestyle. Go visit trollcoclothing.com and use my discount code, OldBoyPodcast, for 15% off. And the other one, and this kind of goes back to what we talked about with 300. You can lose, but still win.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I look at that. Did Justin get knocked out in the last second of that fight, and did he lose? Did he participate in one of the best mixed martial art combat fights in the history of the sport? Yeah. There's a bit of a win there, right? Like,
Yep. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
you get your nose broken the first round, and it's not an excuse. It's not you keep pushing forward. You stayed with the plan, which I know another thing for you is jumping straight to plan B. Let's not do that. Let's try to fully work the plan we've got in mind before we go.
Oh, absolutely. Don't change it. I mean, it's not broken. That was a close fight. We fought the wrong way. Like this is why you don't game plan and try to put one strategy out there. Max is a pressure fighter. He didn't pressure at all. He sat back. He laid punches out. Like if there was a fight, anybody was hurt afterwards, it was Max. It wasn't Justin. We landed the bigger blows. Everything that he was throwing, he was touching low kicks. We were hammering low kicks. Max was talking about how bad his leg was after the fight. But he fought from a point standpoint, very, very intelligent, and fought his range. He was able to stay at his range, which is very untypical of Max. And man, we didn't lose the fight. Max won the fight. So it was a performance. He performed. He put on a great show. That's one of his most meaningful things to do is to be the most exciting fighter in the world and give the fans their money's worth. There was one thing he told me a long time ago before he was even on the big shows, before we were in World Series. as he's like, one of my biggest pet peeves is when I pay money for a fight and all the fights suck. And he's like, Coach, I'll never do that. One of his most craziest fights, like this is a crazy story with Oliveira, and Rose fought right before him, and Rose went out and Pat had stepped in as head coach for the last two fights, and they brought her grandma out, and her grandma doesn't like fighting, and his strategy prior to the fight is just move around with her, don't get touched. Your grandma doesn't want to see you all bruised up, and I remember thinking to myself, what do you mean doesn't want to see you bruised up? And so we go out to the fight. We're sitting there, and it was like third round when I looked at Joe Rogan because he said, "You hear these boos? That means we're winning." And I looked at Joe Rogan, and I was like, I shook my head, like, I don't know if you're listening to that mic right now, but that's the craziest shit I've ever fucking heard in my life. And then, so she gets done, and I told her, I was like, I think you're losing the fight. And she's like, really? She's like, oh, I think I'm winning. I'm like, dude, you're shadow boxing the fucking air. Like, what are you doing? And afterwards, I had to get back to Justin, and I told her right before I left to go to Justin, I said, prepare for the press conference because people are going to be on your ass. I said, this performance was horrible. And she's like, she gave me this look. And then then we're getting ready to walk with Justin, and Justin looks at me. He can tell I'm fucking pissed. And he's like, don't worry, coach. I ain't going to be no bitch. And I thought it was kind of funny. I was still freaking pissed. And then he goes out there and fights like a maniac. Yeah. And just reckless. Like all the things we had spoke about. He ends up throwing a hook and doing a 360, and I'm telling him, pull back. And I'm telling him, don't end up in between his shoulders because of Oliveira's clinch. And he's throwing low kicks, leading all the way into him. And I'm like, pull back, pull back. And he throws that 360 hook and then ends up getting stopped. And I go up to him and I'm looking through him at the cage and I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, yeah, I'm good. And I'm like, what the fuck were you thinking? And he looks at me, he goes, what'd I do? Dude. And right there, I felt so bad. I was instantly like, fuck, dude, I should have said that shit. Like, that was the wrong fucking shit to say. But what the fuck were you doing? You did a 360 with a left hook.
Yeah.
What the fuck? And he said he was blitzed. Like he had a bike accident 2 weeks prior to that where he got concussed. It's like whole skid down his back. Like it was horrible. Like he was riding to go get some chew.
Mhm.
And said he got buzzed there. But he's like, everything he hit me with, I was rocked. He's like, I don't remember anything. And so I felt so bad for saying that. But he was like, but I fought with emotion. He was like, I was gonna fucking, and he's like, that was the stupidest freaking thing to do. And that type of thing of just going out there and watching that, like bad decisions, went out there, fought like a maniac.
Yeah.
When he fights very intelligent, like the Tony Ferguson fight, very good.
Yes.
The fight with Max
Mhm.
was a very intelligent fight. He still fought very methodically, was very smart, very good with the low kicks. Again, Max just beat us in that area. And I tip my hat to Max. What a great way to fight, especially a guy like Justin. That's a great way.
One of the things, and we've talked about it a few times, is, and you look at it in Usman, you look at it in Justin, both leverage the leg kick a
Yep.
lot. Do you find that's just a way for them to allow to kind of keep their length that they want to fight at? Is it like what is so impactful? Because it's key to both of their styles.
Yep. I think it's a positional thing. It breaks your position. And the way that Justin, like he's had a lot of people quit from the low kicks, like they hurt.
Mhm.
Like hitting someone to the head is like being at the bar. You give someone a shot,
Yeah.
they fight harder. So anytime you're hitting them to the head, it's like giving them a shot. You hit them to a low kick, they feel the pain. They feel it, even with their adrenaline going. They feel it. They have to assess it, and then they start changing things. And that's a good way to really disrupt people.
Is that where you kind of get the position over submission?
Well, the position is if they can't put a lot of weight on that leg,
Mhm.
or if they're adjusting now you're controlling their feet.
Yep.
If you control someone's feet, then you can get them off balance. And once you're leading the dance with the feet is key. Like you want to have someone off balance, or someone's balanced that can take a punch very well. Like the shot that Justin had taken against Max turned him, got him square, got him off balance in between punches, wasn't set with his feet. He's right in between motions. So those types of things, again, very high level stuff, but that's why you low kick. You want to control their feet. Hitting someone with one foot on the ground compared to both feet on the ground is different, especially if you get them on their rear foot.
Yeah.
If they're on their rear foot, they can't bite down as much. They fall back. Their posture is weak. So it looks like they break their neck when they get hit.
All right, we are at the last question, Coach. I was looking at, I believe it was UFC 268. Justin beats Chandler. Rose defends, Usman defends. You're three people, you're stable. After a night like that, that night, the next morning, do you ever take the time just to sit back and reflect and appreciate what you've done, what you've built? Not in a way of getting complacent, but just you be present for a second and look at what we're
Yeah,
doing.
yeah. This one thing I do very well is after every fight, whether we win or lose, I always go have a moment by myself outside and just think through the situation, think through the journey, and the journey is the fight camp, and then also the process to get to that fight, which is over the years. And that was a special one. I didn't think we were going to win any going into that fight. To be honest with you, I had such a bad back injury. It was hard for me to work with any of them. I was putting on these hip machines like every 2 hours, and man, I could barely walk, but I was able to hit mitts so my adrenaline would go. And then once my adrenaline kicked off, I was just like, dude, I could barely walk. So that was really hard on me. And there was just like everything was wrong. Everything was going wrong up to the fight. My wife got really sick. I had to go stay in a hotel. All sorts of this little things that if I were to sit down and think of it, it was just one after another. And it was just like, man, this is just not meant to happen. And I mean, from stuff in the locker room, like there's so many things that happened that night that when the fights were over, it was, I remember right after the fight where I sat on the outside when Usman, I know he had won the decision. And I just sat on the outside. I looked around and I seen his eyes up there's like these little strips that go between the nosebleed seats, and they show his eyes, and then they showed Colby Covington's eyes on the other one. I remember just looking at those and just saying, man, how did this happen? And I have confidence in the guys. I just didn't have confidence in myself and just the patterns. It's again, when you think about the rabbit's foot, everybody's like, oh man, we're fighting in the same city. I've won in that city. It's a good thing. So these things start to become something, if you make them something.
Mm.
And I was making them something just because there was so many. And I was just like, man, I was just like, this is rough. I don't know if I've ever been doing all three on the same card. Thank God Dana put Justin on the first fight because they were supposed to be all three back to back, which was crazy. And I wrap all their hands. And then again, I want to make sure I'm seeing everybody's mentality. Like, are they starting to get, I want to make sure I'm helping them with their mind if they're starting to get scared or starting to, because different emotions go on in the locker rooms. And it was just a lot. And yeah, I do remember thinking through that and being like, oh my gosh, that was crazy. All right, that was unique. That was very, 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 very unique. But I'll never forget it.
No, and to me, that's just when I was looking at it, like, it's just impressive.
Yeah.
And now to know all the stuff that you personally
Yeah,
were dealing with leading into something like that, and to go 3-0.
yeah.
Like,
I remember with Ben afterwards too. So the media. So I don't do interviews. I stopped doing interviews. I stopped doing podcasts. Like, you're very lucky because Luke's the only guy I do it with. But thank you for what you've done for me. I really appreciate it, Justin. So, but I just don't do any interviews like that. And after that fight, they'd asked me to come to the whole media thing, and I was like, sure. I didn't want to do it, and I'm like, well, I need to get my bag. I got my cameras in it. I was like, let me get back to the locker room. They're like, oh, they already got your bags. And I'm like, my camera is in there. My wallet's in there. Just let me get back there to get it. And I told Ben, I was like, let's go. We ran up there's like a little car drive coming from the garage. And we ran out there. I was like, oh.
Trevor Wittman's going to be joining us, or Trevor Wittman's
Dude, I was the best. Dude, Ben's like, you're crazy, dude. He's like, why don't you want to do interviews? And I was like, it's about the fighter right there who wants to talk to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, and I was gonna wrap up with, this is a real treat, guys, because Trevor doesn't do these kind of interviews or share like this. It means the world to me, man. Like I said, from the day I've walked in here, I felt like part of the family and love supporting you, just and Luke,
Yep.
Archie now, like,
Totally. Yeah.
it's whatever you guys need. If I can help on the barbecue front
Yeah.
or whatever way, man,
Yeah.
I'm more than happy to. But it means so much more to me than I probably
Absolutely.
realized to do this today. And I just respect what you've done, and to be able to talk to somebody that's where they're at in their industry, so well respected and with a smile on your face, and you're making these young men just better people, not just great fighters. And then they're going to go on and share that with the next generation. And you're doing the Lord's work, Trevor.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. What you've done for my athletes on weight cut days and feeding the coaches and just doing that. Like, there's nothing better. Like, all the coaches are bound together during fight week, and just having that to be able to sit back and celebrate prior to us going out there and competing is very unique. And I know Justin really enjoys to smell the food. Like you guys just doing that for us, and then also coming out and doing it a second time and just sharing that. Like, we are a fight family. So that's why I'm proud to be on the show with you, because what you've done for us.
Well, hey, I think we should do it again next time I get it.
Let me know. Let me know.
Trevor, thank you so much.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
Guys, I'm just going to say that's one of the most amazing episodes of the Old Boy Podcast ever. Catch you next week. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, guys, I told you were in for a heck of a discussion, and we've got one going on. But I'm going to make you old boys and old girls come back next week for part 2 of the Trevor Wittman podcast. It's been great so far, and you don't want to miss it. It only gets better. Next week, we'll bring it to you, part 2. Till then, take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Old Boy Podcast. Please subscribe, like, set your notifications, whatever you got to do to make sure you're getting the latest episodes. Also, feel free to go back, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple. Get some of the past episodes, check those out, and always feel free to check out our socials, Old Boy Podcast. Thank you so much.